This is Julie D., and you're listening to the Nordonia We Need to Talk podcast network, brought to you by NordoniaHills.news, recorded in the Gary Miller studio. Today we have Victor Milani, former mayor of the Village of Northfield and City of Macedonia Councilman Kevin Bilkie. Welcome.
Thanks for having me, Julie. Nice to see you, Vic.
Welcome, Kevin. Very, very, very glad to have you today. You've been a Macedonia councilor now for how many years?
So I got elected in November of 2015. So 2.5 years, closing 2.5 years in June. So
give us a little history about Kevin Bilkie.
All right, sure.
You were born in a log cabin.
Yes.
You were born in a log cabin, and you had to walk to school in cardboard shoes.
I was actually born in Youngstown, Ohio, at St. Elizabeth Church, or St. Elizabeth Hospital. I was born and raised in Poland, Ohio. I moved to the Cleveland area after college. I went to Youngstown State and graduated. I actually had a degree in political science. I never thought I was going to use that degree until I ran for office. But I've worked in basically sales most of my life, a lot of medical staffing. I sold insurance for a little bit. But I've been in the area here, in the Nordonia area. In 2005, I bought a condo in Steeplechase 2, and I still own it. I rent it out now. Me and my wife got married in 2010, and we moved to Macedonia, and I've been here ever since.
Kevin, I had no idea that you used to live in the village.
Oh yeah, you were probably mayor back then.
Yes, I was.
I used to frequent scoreboards every now and again.
I wouldn't doubt that.
And I think I've seen you there a few times.
No. You never saw me in Allen Feet. No. Never did that.
That's another show.
Yeah, that's another show for another time. Alan is now in Seattle, so he's...
Oh, is that where he at?
Yeah. Alan's moved back to Seattle. You and I have something in common. I at one time, years ago, prior to becoming the mayor, for a few years, I was Mr. Mom. I know your current role is somewhat of a Mr. Mom.
Yes.
Do you want to maybe
tell
us about this?
When I met my wife, she is a emergency medicine doctor, and I at that time I owned a doggy daycare business in Garfield Heights, and my lease was coming due, and I didn't renew it. And at that same time, my wife and I had our first child, Kaylee. And at that time, we decided, hey, why don't I stay home? Basically, the doggy daycare business was making about the same amount of money that it would cost to send someone to daycare on a full-time basis. So
yes, amen to that.
It made perfect sense. And I wear many hats in my life, and I got to tell you, this has probably been the most fruitful one. I love spending days with my daughters, and I put in my time when changing the diapers, and I put in my time coddling them and raising them. And I have two strong girls now. We in 2011 was Kaylee, in 2014 Kennedy, and now Kennedy is in preschool, and so I get a few days to myself. But during that stretch, I still wanted to use my mind. And that encouraged me to run for office. Is one of the main reasons. My wife was like, hey, are you sure that you're going to sit around and not do anything? And I was like, well, I was involved with my HOA in Lake Forest Estates. And that's how I got involved with the mayor, Don Cookta, and met some of the council members back in before I ran. And, long story short, they encouraged me to run for council. Well, I gave it a go. And here I am 2.5 years later talking to you guys.
So then basically your motivation to be a counselor came from being on the Home Owners Association.
That was my first experience. I remember the first council meeting I attended, and Jim DiGatano was the service director, and I asked him about who do I talk to about replacing the lights in Lake Forest Estates. And he said, oh, it's me. And so I had a conversation with him after the council meeting, and the next day I got a call from Don Cookta, who was the mayor at the time. He asked me to come in and said, hey, you represented your neighborhood well. Would you have any interest in getting on the future growth committee at the time? And of course, I was like, yeah, I plan to be here, for a very long time. I had two girls that at that time were under 4 years old. So I was like, heck yeah, I'd love to be able to shape, some future, in the city. And then we got to talking, and he found out my background was actually in political science. And, at that time, I think there was some adversary relationships on council, and I was thrust into that probably a little bit more than I wanted to, being somebody that was new to the situation. But I wasn't shy about. I didn't like the city was not able to get rid of the finance director, and we were paying him, and it was more of a power struggle, and the people were the ones that were losing, because we were paying somebody not to work. Made no sense to me, and it didn't matter to me why he was still, or if he deserved to be terminated or not. The fact of the matter, he was getting paid and wasn't working, and that position, it could be filled by, it wasn't the Browns quarterback position. It could have been filled by someone that was a CPA, which we did luckily found Rhonda Hall after, and then she's doing a fantastic job. But that really rubbed me the wrong way, that the council was so dug in and entrenched about one person who wasn't essential to moving forward. So, and that's how that's really how I got involved with the whole getting elected process.
I think if history, or if memory serves me correct, you paid that gentleman in excess of $100,000.
Yeah, when you add in his salary plus the benefits plus his vacation time, it was a lot more than that.
Yeah.
It was, and then not having a finance director, or we paid a part-time one that no one was basically making financial decisions. That position is more than the mayor, more than anybody. I mean, they basically control the money of the city, and you see when we have a financial director that just got awarded to having a clean audit, how much smoother everything is running right now than when you have somebody that was not necessarily doing. I wasn't there, so I don't know if he was doing his job. That wasn't the point of it. The point of it is that we didn't have anyone there, and so we had a lot of hard times. We had a lot of arguments, not me personally, but on council. If you watch them online back then, every meeting. I mean, we had people paying private investigators to investigate other, that was ludicrous to me, that people would, just move forward from this guy. He wasn't, I can't remember exactly what I said, but he wasn't like the second coming of Warren Buffett or any financial Alan Greenspan. He could have been replaced, and for them to be so obstinate about it was ridiculous.
That kind of leads me to my next question. There was a turn on council in this last election. Dave Engel and Sylvia Heineken left, and now you have Vinny Ventura and Jessica Brandt. For you being on council, and I know you were somewhat of a combative nature at times with Ms. Heineken. I'm sure it's a breath of fresh air for you, dealing with people that are less form of being totally combative,
right,
with everything that you would say.
Well, during my time on council the first 2 years, I worked with Sylvia on many occasions, and I think that for all the negative things that people do say about her, she did care about the city, and she just for me, it just went about the wrong way. Is that she wasn't a team builder. She was an individual that thought that she was sometimes above everybody else on council, and for me being combative with her, there was only one time that I can remember. Is when she provided false information when we were trying to get the levy for the rec center passed, and we had plans made. We had architects came up with the plans, and for her to come out and say, "Oh, there's no money, or there's more money than we'd had, and there's no plans in the future for this," is like, well, we're doing all this hard work to try to get this information out to the people so they can actually vote on it with the factual information. And for someone to sabotage it with less than truthful information was, it was something that I ran for council. I wanted to do something. And I know one of the questions later is about the rec center and the parks. And for someone to, basically sabotage it was really upsetting to me. And I don't know if I handled it the right way or not. I kind of got upset at a council meeting. But it was only because, it was frustrating to deal with somebody that wouldn't come to the table and negotiate or even be a team player. I mean, there was no effort. And so we moved on for it. And the question was about Jessica and Vinny, which, I personally backed them, and it wasn't because, we wanted to get Sylvia and Dave out. That wasn't it. I liked what they had to say. They came to council meetings. They came to financial meetings. And in the 2 years I was on council, I had more conversations with them about the city than I did have with Dave Engel and Sylvia Hannikin. And so when they decided to run, I was naturally going to back them. And truth be told, they backed me when I ran. Vinny was out at Longwood at the polling handing out cards for me, and I barely knew the guy, but he had listened to what I had to say when I was running and liked it and got involved. And Jessica the same way. I was on the Future Growth Committee with her, and when I said I was running, she like, well, can I help you? And of course. So I mean, it's a tout detente, but they ran. I liked what they had to say, and so of course I backed them. And yes, breath of fresh air. It's funny, the conversations that we've had just at the few months they've been on council, during the work sessions and during the council meetings, not one person is dominating those meetings anymore. We're actually talking, and we don't always agree, but we talk through it. It's not just the conversation stops at one person, and everyone else tunes out. So we're not talking to the cameras. I think we're talking to each other.
Kevin, you had mentioned that you had been on the Macedonia Recreation Board for 2 years. What are some of the accomplishments that you think that you and the rest of the board were able to polish or to get?
When I first got elected, Vic, I was excited to be on that committee. I came in with a lot of enthusiasm, and a lot of people on the committee. I think a few of them left because it was one that was stagnant. Because they didn't have any extra money to do anything with. Right away we knew that we were going to go after a levy to renew the rec center, so the money would actually, your taxpayer money wouldn't filter through the general fund. It would actually be earmarked right for the rec center, and I was excited about doing that. And I got involved in what's called Issue 19. It was in 2017, I believe, or 2016 is when we ran for renewal, and it failed by 180 votes. And I think if we do put it on again, but here's the thing: it was during a presidential election. It was probably the most votes that were, most people came out to that election and voted, and the people spoke. We haven't heard us talk about putting in a swimming pool since. Unfortunately, we live in a democracy. The people spoke, and but of course we still have to maintain the rec center. We still pass the levy that does earmark some money. So to answer your question, my time on the board, we identified what the major areas were that needed upgraded, and of course the equipment, the locker rooms, and just the trails at Longwood Park. So I'm happy to say that the locker rooms are being updated, and I'm sure as a Mr. Mom, if you went there, you had to use the family locker rooms there, and they're about as big as this room, which is not very big. And so when you're in the locker room with two girls, and you're bumping other people in there, it's kind of like this needs to be done. So that work will be started on that very soon. The trails at the park, I recently talked to John Adavans, Service Director, about putting signs up, and I said I'll donate money to make those trails look as good as some of the other neighboring communities have. And so we're going to be working on that. But they did do it for the 5K run at the Fun Fest. So those are all, they're not perfect by any means, but they're better than the mud that used to run through there. I go there every day with my dog, or just about every day. So I keep a close eye on those trails. So that's something that I'm very proud of that we did. And I think we reorganized. We went through a period of where the levy fell off. The new levy did not get renewed. So there's a lot of panic there for a little bit of how we're going to fund the rec center. We held the ship together. We regrouped. We passed the levy that does make sure that the rec center will survive. Now the growth is going to be a little slower, but there will be. I know that Angela Manley, the parks director, is looking to do new equipment this year. She wants to update the downstairs and make it more of a place you go in and watch TV, not a lounge on your treadmills, and more aesthetically nice when you walk in there. And I think the next step is maybe a gymnasium down the road. I mean, it's a long-term goal, not a short-term now. But we've talked about all those. We have plans in the works for all those things. Now we just need to create the funding or find funding for it. So,
Well, speaking of funding for the rec center, I know that they recently changed their plans for if people want to join, like membership. You can also join for a month now.
Yep.
And anybody that has a membership can take the free classes. They don't have to pay for the classes. And how is that? That seems to be working. I've been hearing good buzz from the neighborhood.
Yeah, we had another gym open up, so it wasn't that. It was we worked on those plans for about a year, talked about them, tested them. Angela went out and talked to other communities that have rec centers and like, how are you maintaining your people that come in. And a lot of people had asked, hey, I'm only here for the summer. My kid's home from school. He wants to work out, and so we kind of made some changes. And the other big change was you're correct, Julie, is including the fitness classes, and I think that has made a lot of difference. From talking to Mary Beth, is it Mary Beth Sam Barton? Beth Ann Barton, and she's like, it's been incredible. How many people are going to the fitness classes now because they're included in the membership fee, and so that's really, I think, driven the increase in memberships. I've
been talking to Angela and I've been talking to Joe McLaurini, and you mentioned the other gym, Planet Fitness, which is an advertiser with us, by the way, so I have to get that little cheap plug-in for them. But
and taxpayers. So.
And taxpayers as well, yes. When I go past there, the parking lot seems to be filled. I mean, I'm sure it's always good to have a thriving business come into town. But with that being said, has there been a less of a registration or memberships with the Macedonia Recreation since Planet Fitness?
I don't know the numbers from February, but January was one of the best months memberships that we've ever had. So maybe because people are waiting to, join when the memberships or when the fitness classes were included. Don't know. There's no rhyme or reason why sometimes things happen the way they do, but it seems like that has driven business back to the rec center more than it's taken it away. And it's a different type of gym. I mean, the rec center is the Macedonia Family Rec Center. There's an indoor swimming pool. There's things that I take my daughters there. There's a track inside. Mm-hmm. Of course, there's a weight room and treadmills and a spinning class and fitness classes. But a lot of people join because they want to do the other amenities that it offers. And and truth be told, a family of 4. It's as inexpensive to join the rec center as to join Planet Fitness when it's all added together. Per month, if you join Planet Fitness, and there's, I think it's $10 a month or whatnot. I'm not going to speak for them, but that's what it costs basically a month for joining the rec center, and you get a whole lot more. Now, someone like who's single and wants to join, and wants to go and work out at 10 o'clock at night. Planet Fitness is probably the place for them. Right. But if you have a family, don't be so short to sell the rec center out, because it's probably a better bargain and there's a whole lot more to offer.
You had instituted something. I'm not sure if it was you or Jessica Brandt and Vinny, but there is now an hour period prior to some of the council meetings that you'll actually come out to the council chambers and let the public talk, and kind of a question and answer period. How's that been done? Has it been well received?
Well, this is I believe the 4th week, and I'm going to be doing it next Thursday. It was Vinny Ventura who brought it to our attention. It was something that he thought that being in the audience it would have been nice to talk to someone on council that knows a little bit more about the innards and the goings on. Sometimes the mayor's not reachable. He's always has office hours every day, but sometimes you want to talk to the council and where they're going to be on Thursday nights. I think it's fantastic. When he suggested, I was like, how come we haven't done this in the past? It's great to meet people from the community and be able to answer the questions. 9 times out of 10, and I'm sure you probably know this, is that people, when you talk to them face to face, they walk away with, okay, I understand where that guy's coming from now. And it's a lot easier when you're looking from afar and say that guy doesn't know what he's talking about. Sometimes we actually do. I won't say all the time, right? But it is nice to meet members and be able to. I said this before, that we're here to help the community. Regardless of if you listen to us, if you like us or not. I think all 5 of us, and I think anyone who runs for council and the mayor, I'm sure, you only do it for one reason, to help out, what you want your community to get better. There's very few people that are going to run for city council and devote as much time as we do, we make $9,400 a year doing it, and we do it because we want our community to get better, not because we're getting rich.
Exactly.
And I don't think a lot of people realize that if you ask me a question, I'm going to try to solve it. If I don't know how, I'll put you in contact with the right person. We've heard, the 2 years and even before that, the roads. And so we devised the plan. And I'm very proud to say that, I helped institute the plan that we have now to get the roads working, get the roads paved every year, for the foreseeable future. I believe, I don't know how this is going off on a little tangent, but I want to make sure that we talk about there's going to be
I do know
42 roads that are going to be paved in 2 years.
I do know that you're on course this year to do 31 roads.
32 now, I believe, because we added another road because when we got the quotes back from the, I think it's called Specialized. It's a little bit lower than what our engineering department thought, so we were able to add another road. So, we had a report when we first got elected. There was a report in 2015 that said, hey, here are the road conditions. There's poor, fair to poor, and fair. And I think we've covered every road that was on those 3. And so now we have money to maintain those roads, and moving forward, we'll be able to keep up Ledge Road and Highland Road and Valley View Road. But to get back to your question, which was about meeting people, those are the biggest questions that they had. And when they realize that it doesn't happen overnight, there's a process with everything. They walk away, and it's been received very well. I think every week there's been at least 1 or 2 people that have been talking, one-on-one with one of the council members, and I think we encourage people to stay to the council meeting. It's an hour. But you learn so much, at those council meetings of what's going on in your city. And I know they're taped, and you guys do a great job putting them out online. But being there and talking to us one-on-one, we get more ideas out of people like that than we would, sitting at home. So yeah, come in. We're here to listen. That's what I mean. We take a lot of grief for some of the decisions that we make, and sometimes we get praised. And I'm not going to say either ways is which way I'd rather be praised, but if we get someone that wants to come in and give us some suggestions, we're open. We're open-minded people. I mean, we're on Macedonia City Council. This is the basic local government, and this is what works best to get your roads paved, your leaves picked up, your twigs picked up. We're right here to talk to you. You don't have to drive to Columbus. You don't have to drive to Washington, D.C. We live in this community, so I just want to make sure. And we get plenty of phone calls, but my phone call, my phone number. Am I rambling, Julie?
You're doing good.
Thank you. My phone number, so my cell phone is what I have on the site, on the city website. So you can call me anytime.
Give it out. Come on. Give it up.
216-832-7902. I've had it for about 25 years now.
Wow.
Kevin, you've been on council only now 2.5 years, roughly. What have been some of the highs and the lows during your tenure?
Certainly the high was getting elected. Don't
tell me it's went downhill since then.
It's all been downhill
first time running for office. Just getting the endorsements from the police department, the fire department, the unions all backed me, and it was one of those things where I asked and they did it, and they didn't do it probably because they didn't want to see my competitors win. But it was also nice that they said, hey, listen, you seem like an even kill person that can come in and do some good and not stagnate the city and not, put it in a pigeonhole and so it doesn't move forward. And now, those are proud days where, I remember getting that letter and it's signed by all the unions and, not that it said a tear came to my eye. It didn't roll down my cheek, but it came to my eye, I should say. And it's been mostly high. You know, I've met a lot of people through this. I went to Ledgeview's Winterfest on Wednesday night this week, and I was just amazed myself of how many people that I know. And just walking through Ledgeview, you know, just the parents and the kids, like, you know, it's great to be part of the community and, you know, and make a difference. And, you know, I think I've done a lot of positive things for the community so far, you know, especially getting the roads levy passed. The low was definitely the day after, in the meeting after issue 19 failed. I was disappointed because we put a lot of effort into getting that thing passed, and I really do think that it would have made Macedonia just that shining diamond that we could have had a swimming pool, a gymnasium, and a amphitheater, you know. And it just kills me when I drove around town, saw "Vote No" signs. Didn't say why. It just says "Vote No," and that to me is, you know, that kills your community.
You know, I think there are times that people in this area, they don't realize that we are one of the lowest taxed regions in the entire county.
I believe that Rhonda Hall on last Thursday, said we're the third lowest property taxed county or city in Summit County.
Yeah.
You know, and that's, you know, and you guys taped or went to the meeting for the schools, and I think they were third on the property tax line
right.
for the lowest in the county,
Right.
which is amazing how well this community is thriving without collecting as much money. You know, and Vic, you know, being a former mayor, you know that the city lives on income tax and the schools live on property tax.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of ways to look at that. Number one, the way that the education is being funded has been ruled unconstitutional four times,
Right.
and yet they continue to do the same methods, and unfortunately, they always come back at the taxpayer, because they're not doing it actually how they're supposed to be doing the funding. But with that being said, it's more of a robbing Peter to pay Paul, because right now, Macedonia.
I haven't heard that before at every council meeting since I've been on council.
Well, that's a favorite saying of Joe Miglorini's. But as he's alluded to many times, you're getting less from, you know, local government taxes. Columbus has constantly eaten away at what comes back home here.
Right. Well, you know, before I got on council, I had no idea what inheritance tax or estate tax or local city tax were. All I know now is that they are getting lower and lower, returns from the state. You know, I think it was $650,000 at one time that the city was getting from the state, and now we're getting less than $200,000 a year.
I think,
that $450,000 is a huge amount of money for a local city. So,
I think that Joe had said that in the past 3 years they've gotten about $600,000 less.
Yeah.
So, which leads me to my next question. You're currently the chairman of finance?
I am. I got elected this year, so I have taken over as a finance chair. We've only had one finance committee meeting because, unfortunately, the city has a little. I think we ended up with $33,000 that we can spend on capital this year. And you know, when you look at the budget, you know, it's a tight budget. It's the same as the budget was last year. It's just the expenses go up. And we're not collecting any more than we have. The property taxes are it's the same, and the income tax has actually been lower. Now, the money that the 0.25%, I'm not going to get too technical on this because I get confused myself talking about it, but that money is going to be earmarked right for roads and road repair and the rec center, so it's not relief on any general fund. So the same money that we collected last year and the year before and the year before that 2% is what funds your city. Unfortunately, the city expenses, and you know, just like any expenses go up, you know, and then with the state taking away more money, you know, we got to make that up, and you know, the state expects us to go to the city. That is their plan. You know, when you have a city such as Macedonia, you know, any surrounding city, this you know, Kasich basically said that we're going to take that money and we're going to put it at the poor areas, and you can go to your voters and ask for more.
Kevin, what was the carryover this year as far as the general
I think
fund?
it was $1.5 million.
$1.5 million.
Which I think it was going to be, we saved money. I think it was originally going to be less than $1 million when we did the budget. So we're not wasting money. Is the answer? We ended up carrying over probably about $600,000 more than we thought we were going to, and that's by saving. We had some retirements. We had some projects that we didn't do. So it all comes back to sitting in the same unencumbered fund, it's called, and it's just sitting there waiting. But 1.5 for a city this size is not a lot of money. And when you go forward the next year, that number goes down to 600,000. So basically, the same budget is going to cost more one year to the next.
You look at other towns like Beechwood. I know they carry over 30 million. Solon carries over 20 million. Even Northfield Village is now, due to the Hard Rock, carrying over $3.5 million. I mean, that's...
Hey, Vic, what was the carryover when you were there?
I was lucky to carry over what I had in my pocket. No, we've gone from, basically the outhouse to the penthouse.
Wow.
I can't say enough about Mr. Milstein, Hard Rock. I mean, they've to be quite honest with you, and I can say this with all truth, if it weren't for the Hard Rock and Mr. Milstein, we were seriously looking to have to annex with Macedonia.
I remember you telling me that.
We were in such dire straits for roughly the entire tenure that I was the mayor, roughly 12 years. It was a daily thing. We were robbing Peter to pay Paul, and it was a daily challenge.
It's a juggling act, and that's exactly why we're asking the people to vote on this next levy in May, is that if you want the city to move forward, this is what. And when we have money, where do we need it? We need it for more personnel in the service department. We need it for a ladder truck. We need it for a new detective in the police department. So it's not like we're going to take that money and just sit on it. We have needs that the city can't afford right now that we'd like to have. And a ladder truck is essential. Not to get into the whole ISO rating, but it saves money for us to have a well-maintained fire department. It saves money on home insurance, on businesses come in, they get a lower rate on their insurance, but that ladder truck, I believe, is 25, 30 years old, and it's looks beautiful. When you look at it up front, but if you look underneath, I guess it's all corroded. And so bottom line is it's a $1.2 to $1.5 million investment where that money does not come in from thin air.
Kevin, I think, and if my memory again serves me correct, out of the monies that are derived from this, what is the breakdown as far as the police, service department, fire department?
Since the fire department, we're if it does pass, we're not going to go after the property tax and the renewal. That is going to save people Macedonia money. It's going to break down 40% to the fire department, which would give them an increase of like $200,000, and then 35% to both the police and the service would give them an increase of, I think it was about $450,000 to add to their budgets. And why I say it's only a 200, even though they're getting more percentages. The renewal that we're not going to go after usually brought in about close to $400,000. So, so the fire department, they have the big ticket need, and then after that, we need to be on par with a lot of other cities in our fire personnel. We are hiring part timers left and right, but they as soon as they got to find a full time job, they leave, which is awesome for them. It's great, but when our full time guys leave and pursue other cities, then you have a problem. And last year, I believe that we were the budget was over $100,000 for overtime, but it blew way out of the water with the two other fire stations that we're running now. It's harder and harder to maintain. I was thinking about this you can't just have one person on. If a police officer calls off, we can probably live a night without that officer, since there's other ones. But if a fire calls off, you need to replace it, because you can't have one guy drive the ambulance and work on the patient in the back. It's impossible to do that.
Well,
So-
I think the fire department code is you can have 2 men in and 2 men out.
Something like that.
So
yes.
you need at least 4, if not 5,
Right.
people on every call.
Every call, right. And so when they are, when someone does call off, you have to bring someone and put them in overtime because you have to, adhere to the codes.
How has the regionalization been? I do have to tip my hat to Chief Tim Black. He threw that thing together within 4-5 months, and it's incredible. From what I understand, both Northfield Center, Sagamore Hills has less of a response time now than what they previously did.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I remember talking to Tim on the Future Growth Committee. He was one of the one thing he said that he would like to see is regionalization. And, I'm glad to say that in my first 2 years being on council, we were able to accomplish not maybe the regionalization that everyone had in mind, but certainly bringing the fire departments together and running them through one department has been very cost effective. Other than the overtime that kind of wasn't factored in when we first did this, it's been a tremendous success. Just the response times for people in Sagamore and Northfield Village or Center have gone down, or close to what they maintain. And the transition went so smoothly that I don't think that anyone even realized, if you were not paying attention, that your fire department changed hands basically over a 6-month period.
I think that they cut off about a minute, if not a minute and a half, as far as the response time. And in that minute and a half, that's vital as far
Absolutely.
as heart attacks and things of that nature.
Right.
So no, a job well done.
Right.
To Chief Tim Black. I know that Mayor Joe McMarini has been trying to get more regionalization, say through services and service department. Is there anything on the future that you can say might or might not,
Don't they
happen?
have to change the charter to do
Well,
that?
I just asked that question the other day because we are doing a little charter review.
Right.
Yeah.
And I said, why don't we look into it? And I don't think that there's a need to change the charter. I don't want to say I'm 100% sure on that, but I did ask that question, and the answer was like, oh, no, we'd be fine to do something like that. I think that was just a rumor that floated around that caught headway.
Yeah, I know that Paul Boucher had said he was excited that Macedonia is
Right.
looking at their charter. So
If it does need to be changed, it makes sense to do it. I don't know why that we would be so steadfast not to regionalize. Even if we don't do it, to take it out of the charter at this time would make sense because it is an option on the table. And to answer Vic's question, I know that right now we're trying to share as much information and equipment and everything with the village, with the Northfield Center, with Sagamore Hills. They used our leaf machine. We used their road repair equipment, and that's where you need to say this is where we're going in the future. That this area, the Nordonia area, will be basic because it's too expensive to buy a piece of equipment and only use it for yourself because it's a leaf machine. You use it for a few weeks and then it sits. Well, if you have one machine that every community uses, it gets its money's worth. Same thing with plows. Same thing with everything.
Kevin, to play the devil's advocate there, though, I'll say this because I know that you, Macedonia, Sagamore Hills, we all pick up leaves about the same time.
Well, that's
so
true.
really that wouldn't work out as far as the leaf machines.
It could be scheduled.
Yeah.
That's maybe a bad example, but it could be worked out where.
Right. Like I said, I was just playing the devil's advocate.
There's plenty of things that the service department does during leaf season too. That if we need it, Macedonia gets it Monday, Tuesday. Sagamore Hills gets it Tuesday, Wednesday. Whatever. It's just an example of a piece of equipment that can be shared.
Right.
well, it's like neighbors sharing equipment.
Exactly.
All these communities are just neighbors trying to work together.
And I still think that I'm not 100% sure. Vic, you probably can help me answer this. That the village fire department still fills up their air tanks here at Macedonia, and it's one huge machine. That it's $1 million machine to fill up your equipment tanks.
I couldn't say because I've been out of office now 5 years. So, but I'll say this. And in talking to the mayor of Northfield, I know that it's somewhat of an irritant to Joe Miglarini that the mayor of Northfield, Mayor Jesse Nee, has not been as active in the regionalization. In talking to the mayor, he says that there's no real benefit at this time for Northfield Village to be a member of this. So there is a safety meeting April the 11th,
Right.
and it involves all 5 towns that are within the area here, politicians, elected officials, police chiefs, fire chiefs. What do you think can be accomplished at this meeting?
I mean, I think the meeting was brought forth, because of the school shootings. I think it's always good to meet. I think the last time that we met as a community, the elected officials, there was a reason why we came, and I can't remember offhand, but it was good to talk. I mean, it's good. Always communication is the key, and I do think that's how some of the ideas spur from those things. Because I don't know Russ Missoula. I know he just got reelected. I've met most of the other elected officials. I can't say that I know anyone that's on the village council, and that's we all are. Like I said, we all are elected to do well for our communities.
And there are some projects that you work on together, like the Ledge Road construction.
But to answer your question, I think that getting everyone together in one room, just to talk about one school safety, is fantastic. Obviously there's a problem that is continued to escalate, and if this area and the schools, since we all share the same school district, if we can come up with some solution to make sure that our kids are safe, then that would be one thing that we have to worry about. But as far as other things that stem from that meeting, as far as the sheriff and the Sagamore Hills Police Department and Northfield Village Police Departments, maybe they can come up with some. Why do we need all this equipment if we're so small of an area? Maybe it doesn't. I can't say for my. I can't say. And you get back on I think the air compressor. I think there's 2 of them in the area. Maybe there was something with the like you have this $1 million machine in this little area. That's just an example. Like, it's overkill. You don't need to if you can only use one.
Kind of goes back, and I can remember the days when we, as a village, priced out a piece of apparatus like the Jaws of Life. Now, it was very costly. Macedonia's got, the Jaws of Life as well.
I think, yeah.
So we would call on Macedonia whenever we would need, that piece of apparatus. So, I mean, there's a lot of duplication.
And they never said no, right?
Right.
I mean, of course, yeah.
No, see, and I think this is where people don't understand. There's an unwritten thing that it's called mutual aid.
Right.
And be it Northfield Village, Macedonia, Sagamore Hills, there's always backup available.
Right.
And it's called mutual aid. There's nothing, quote, on paper, but it's always available. It's like a code of honor.
Right. Those guys are brothers in arms, especially the firefighters. I mean, they're all firefighters first. The city second, and you had the vandalism at the station, and I think it was proven that it more of a hoax and a joke probably than it was someone trying to be vandalized or being mean. I don't know. I think it's still open, but if I think it was probably firefighters horsing around more than it was someone being upset about something.
Well, I think there was a little bit of bitterness there.
That
they had just lost their jobs,
right?
And for whatever the reason, the locks on the building weren't changed.
Right.
The door was open. The lights were off. I mean, it was a comedy of errors.
I know. But I just hope everyone realized they didn't lose their full-time jobs. I mean, they weren't going to lose their homes over this, and it was more of they're losing their part-time jobs, and they probably enjoyed working there part-time. But
either
way.
But I do realize that Chief Tim Black took on many members that had lost their jobs there, and now they work for Macedonia.
A few, yes. Yeah. We had different standards of hiring, so that once they passed those standards, definitely.
Right. Getting back to the income tax levy, Councilor Tully was rather reticent in her voting yes to putting it on the ballot. I think her comment was, I want to leave it up to a vote of the people, and I want to at least give them the opportunity to vote. She was somewhat less than optimistic, though.
Less than enthusiastic about asking the people to spend more money.
She also said it was too soon.
Right. Well, I think I started that because I think that when I mean, being the B on the council, I'm always first to vote, and I think I said that exact same thing. Is that this is not the council raising your taxes? This is you guys as the people of Macedonia realizing, hey, there's a need, there's a necessity to move our city forward. Do your research. The levy that we passed last year did not raise their taxes if they get the refund. So it is basically just moving, a 0.25%. And that money is for them to decide if it's worthy. I think I think the administration has proven that given the opportunity, they will spend the money wisely. A lot of the roads have been paved. A lot of the things that we've done have come under cost, under budget. I know that the locker room is going to be a large project that is going to be taken on, and Joe Migliorini says, as a former contractor, he's going to do a lot of the foreman work and a lot of the hiring and come in a lot less than what it would cost if we bid it out. And those are the things that we're doing to save money. And so, but again, we still need more and it's not me. That's what I'm saying. It's not Kevin. It's not any of the members of council. It's the city. The coffers, the bank accounts need money to help, keep us on par with other cities as far as pay raises, to keep us active with equipment, to keep us, to make sure that we have enough personnel in the service department to complete the projects that the city, because when we're, I know you guys watch it and anyone listen to this, if I'm going to try to give you a rundown. There's 15 people in the service department. There's 3 mechanics. There's 1 sign maker. There's 1 electrician. So that leaves about 10 people to do all the jobs, basically your grunt work, filling patches on your roads. And there's 2 people that work in the parks. So it's even less that go out every day and are working crews. And so this levy would directly affect that service department to be able to hire more people.
Actually, Kevin, I think Joe has been quoted as saying when he first became the mayor years ago, there was 22 members of that department,
Yes.
and there's now 15.
Right.
So, and Macedonia's gotten bigger. The roads are becoming more, and actually, they're doing more with less.
So I believe that in 2008, 2010, that's when the decline in the personnel occurred because the drop in the property taxes and what the money was being brought in. So they had to do something. So to say that that's the one department that hasn't been made whole again,
Right.
they let go personnel, but they never fully recovered from that, and you can tell, some of the projects that those guys built the Veterans Memorial Park. They're going to put the footers and the bathrooms in and the electricity at the rec center, which is, that's what they're for. And, I've had the conversation on a day-to-day basis. They're fantastic, but, they get run down. I mean, there's always seems to be someone hurt because they are doing grunt work, and I think that's admirable job. But, they do, their bodies break down just like anybody else's. And so we need,
There was also some mega plowing done this winter.
Yeah, plowing. They're out at the middle of the night when we're sleeping, 4 a.m. They're out plowing the roads, and then they're going back working the next day, and getting the patches work done.
Kevin, is there with maybe the more funding, with the ability to buy more salt in a bigger building? That obviously would help, because I know that you ran into a bind this past year where you didn't have enough salt.
Well,
That was due to the supply.
yeah,
though.
that there is. I mean, we have 2 salt bins, and there is more than enough room. But when we can't get the supply from the supplier, ran in, and it wasn't just Macedonia.
Right.
We're the only ones that were transparent about it, saying that we were only going to do certain roads. And truth be told, the salt was fine. I think there was 1 snowstorm that we were going to cut back, but we didn't end up doing it because Cargo, the salt supplier, ended up coming through and dropping off, I don't know, 7 tons or what, But there was a panic moment where, like, well, if we get hit again, let's be more conservative on this one. But so there was never a lack of salt. It was the lack of having it in our bins. As far as the service department having 1 location, yeah, I think that's a goal. I mean, that would be a long-term goal. And we are spaced out over 3 buildings. There's one in Longwood Park, there's one on Highland Road, and there's one on Valley View Road. And so if you have a piece of equipment at one, you got to go to that, you got to go back to the job site, So it just seems like one to bring, and the biggest thing is to bring the trucks and all the equipment in from outside of the weather. And right now the buildings are not big enough for that. So our trucks and our equipment that we spent thousands of dollars on sit outside in the snow, and you know what happens. That in this weather, they get old real quick down that way. And then the other thing is a wash basin. When I first, and I always go back to the Future Growth Committee, which we talked to all the department heads, and they said, the longevity of those trucks are so dwindled down because of the erosion from the salt, because we have no place to wash. So that was all. If you're going to do a new building, make sure you do it right, and that obviously increases the price and why it hasn't been done yet. Let's not do it. Can I say half-ass? Is that okay? And
I
then
don't know if we can use that one.
Well,
we can always take that out afterwards.
Let's not do it half the way and have to go back and redo it, years later. And that's what it seems like. The whole Peter to pay Paul thing is, let's do it. We don't need state of the art, but you do need a building that's going to last for.
You need
adequate space with a wash basin and something that we're not going to have to do again. Let's not make it the Cleveland Browns Stadium where it's already falling apart after 20 years, like the team.
I think that Joe Miglerini had mentioned that you have between $25 and $30 million in projects that really are not a want, but they're a need.
The 5-year plan, yes, has projects that anything that we can do out of that. And the first finance meeting that I ran, I wanted to point out that we did accomplish a lot of the goals, but there's plenty more in the next few years that we're not going to be able to accomplish if we don't have any more money. And just the service building is one of them. Putting I can't remember the word, a canopy over the police cars to keep them out of the weather, to redoing the HVAC on the city building. I'm sure the 20-year-old building at the rec center, that's probably going to need work. So yeah, it all costs money. We're not a business that earns money. We have to raise our product and our product is unfortunately taxes. So I hope people realize we're doing everything we can to make sure the quality of life in this city is better. We're just asking for a little bit more portion of your money to make sure that we can accomplish those goals.
Kevin, in wrapping our little talk up here, what are your long or your short and then long-term goals being on council, and what do you see as the future of Macedonia?
So right now, very proud that we're going to be accomplishing as much road work as we're doing. I was the number one when I was canvassing the city, running for council. Like, when are we going to pay these roads? When are we going to pay these roads? So that, mission accomplished on that. I think that not only do we have the road paving moving forward, there was also a maintenance portion of it, and that portion is going to maintain the roads, and that's just as important. Let's not make a good road go to poor over a matter of years. Let's keep it good.
You don't want it to go to pot.
So yeah.
Well. See, I think I think it's called mill and fill. That's not a Band-Aid, but that's more of a long-term fix.
Right. Well, we want to make sure that once we pave these roads, we want to maintain them for a long period of time.
And that would be like a crack and seal program. Exactly.
Right. Yeah. And I'm just learning these terminologies, but I know what both of you said is absolutely. The other short term is getting a ladder truck. I mentioned the ISO rating. We are also, and I don't think people realize the need for a ladder truck is we have the Avenue, we have Summit Point, we have a couple of the casino. We'd be calling on mutual aid for that. That's an essential piece of equipment to have, and if it breaks down, boy, we're in trouble. I'm pretty sure Twinsburg has a ladder truck, but do you want?
Plus, also, I think that you have the junior high school too.
The high school, exactly.
Middle school.
So there, any building over 2 or 3 floors needs that water rating down. So that's that's a necessity here in a short term goal that we like to accomplish. And we're hoping that with the regionalization that that we've increased and we've shown the state, hey, listen, we're trying the best we can. Can we get a federal fund or a state fund or a grant to help pay for it? But it's not going to pay for all of it. But long term, I'd like to see a gymnasium at the rec center, something that, moving forward with my life, having girls that probably going to be involved with sports would be fantastic. Having an amphitheater there that, you can put on little concerts, better walking trails. Those are things that I'd like to see accomplished. As far as the city, I know there's going to be some question or not if we should go back to 6 members of council. And just working through, trying to get little things accomplished. And, the one thing I remember John Golden said this was we need to make sure that we're building on a good foundation before we're going off adding things. So I think, after the first 2 years of my council, I think that we're building that foundation back up to where we can start growing again. But first, let's make sure that we're building on that solid foundation. So,
yeah, I'll say this in ending. Currently, there's one resource officer, Glenn Nickel, who does a fabulous job. It's been brought up during these meetings as far as, high school safety issues, that maybe there should be more. But to be fair to Macedonia, should maybe the other towns pitch in and give them a officer or two to maybe help this?
The towns, the school, yeah. I'm hoping that at our safety project or safety meeting that we see this as a priority, and it's not just a Macedonia priority. It's a school district, and each town would benefit from it and help pay for it. So the end and I'm not going to. I mean, that's something that Sylvia Hannikin was upset about. Like we're the only town paying for this, and we have our research office going. Not only does he go to Ledgeview in the high school, which are located in Macedonia, he did put time at Northfield Elementary and Rushwood, and so he was visible at those schools too. And I think that the sheriff department does a lot of work over in Sagamore. But if we can come to some sort of agreement where the conglomerate of cities can say, okay, this is a priority. Dr. Joe Clark put it out there. Hey, this is our number one concern. The safety of our kids. Well, maybe it's time to put our money where our mouth is and make it so.
Well, I do know that the Board of Education has talked about putting a levy on in May. I think if they would include
I think it's going to be November.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I think if they would include in that that proposition that they will add resource offices, I think that would help the passage of this.
They would certainly encourage people that this is number one priority here.
Kevin, you and I could talk for hours.
No kidding.
And it's like we've talked for hours, I think. But
almost.
Has it been an hour already?
Yes.
Well,
Kevin, it's been a pleasure having you.
Well, thanks for having me. How did I sound, Julie?
You sounded awesome.
Because your intro was fantastic. So this is my normal voice. You had your microphone voice on for that first intro. So.
Well, you got to put it on for the
That's
intro.
right.
Though I had wanted to do the ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, let's get ready to rumble.
Well,
but
we'll save that for another podcast.
But I was superseded again.
You have to pay for that, though. You
Michael Buffer.
Yeah, you can't
Michael
say
Buffer,
without paying somebody.
Oh, wait. I'm getting a message here from our engineer. Yes, sir?
We should do this again sometime, Kevin.
Yes, that is a good point. This was a lot of fun. We definitely need to make this a regular thing. What do you think, guys?
Well, Kevin, this was my first podcast.
Mine too.
Although I've been on other radio shows, and I've never had a loss for words, obviously. And you and I worked well on this because I kind of know the nature of the beast that you're dealing with, and it's not a walk in the park. There are days you say, "Why did I get into this?" And I think that you've done a very, very, very good job.
Well, thank you.
And I think that you're very open to what the people want to hear. And the one thing I found out from being the mayor, you may not agree with people, but they want to be heard.
Absolutely.
And I think that's important, is that you listen to them.
Well, it's funny. I live in Lake Forest Estates, and we have a Sunday dinner club. So every Sunday we eat together with 4 other families. Our kids are all the same age. And I get a lot of my not advice, but a
Material?
lot of my material, right? Like, because these are, I mean, from a doctor to a construction worker to someone who works in sales, someone who works in insurance. I mean, so they're all walks of life. It's a nice little a stay-at-home mom microcosm of what the city is. And, you know, so I don't assume anymore that everyone agrees with what I'm saying because, you know, even though, but we have a great conversation about, you know, about everything. And, you know, I can't remember what we wholeheartedly disagreed on, but, you know, but we always work through it and like, hey, this is the reason why I'm thinking this. Why are you thinking the opposite? And it's great. I mean, that's you know, it's communication, and that is what is needed, and that is what I strive for.
Kevin, again, thank you very much.
I have the final word. I just want to give a shout out and tell everybody in the community, one of the things we need to do to bring everybody together is come to the expo on March 24th at the high school. It's like a big reunion. Everybody comes out of the winter doldrums and meet and greet everybody. Sometimes that's like once a year. Have you been to our expo?
I was there last year. I bring the kids, and they take all the candy.
Well, thank you guys for coming, and let's make this a regular thing, and people can listen for more later.
Sounds good. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, guys.